Government regulators unchecked. How the SEC and FINRA shattered one man's American dream. The Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, was created to ensure fairness in financial markets, to serve as a watchman against fraud and abuse. But what happens when the watchdog becomes an unaccountable force that turns compliance into a weapon and ambition into ashes? That question haunts the story of Jimmy Black, a North Carolina entrepreneur who was profiled in Pacific Legal Foundation's PLF investigative report titled The Messenger, a regulatory authority turned one man's American dream into a nightmare. Black, founder of Southeast Investments, once believed in the rules. His career was built on them, but the very systems he followed came to betray him, dragging him into a regulatory fight that cost him everything. At the heart of the matter is a little-known but immensely powerful private organization called the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA. Although it acts like a government agency, auditing, investigating, and punishing brokers, it is technically a private corporation. It is overseen by the SEC, which delegates enforcement power to it. But as PLF argues, that delegation raises serious constitutional concerns. FINRA's officers are not appointed by the President, nor confirmed by the Senate. They are, for all intents and purposes, an independent enforcement body, answerable to no electorate, and shielded from the checks and balances that define a democratic system. In Black's case, FINRA charged him with violating a so-called branch office rule, a dense regulatory requirement that most Americans have never heard of. Essentially, he allowed brokers to work remotely, using technology to communicate securely, in what he believed to be full compliance with the rules. But FINRA disagreed. They saw a technical violation. The punishment? A crushing $200,000 fine, later lowered to $146,500, and a lifetime ban from working in the securities industry. No criminal charges, no fraud, no investor harm, just a paperwork issue with career-ending consequences. I did what the industry said it wanted: modernization, communication, compliance, Black says. They turned that into a crime. PLF took up his case, not just because of the injustice he faced, but because of what it reveals about the architecture of American financial regulation. According to PLF, FINRA's existence in its current form violates the U.S. Constitution's Appointments Clause, which requires that individuals exercising significant federal power must be appointed by the President and confirmed by the Senate, or otherwise be supervised by such an appointee. FINRA's officers are neither. They serve in a regulatory gray zone, exercising public authority under private immunity. And FINRA is not some backroom outfit. It oversees over 600,000 brokers across the United States. It issues fines, suspensions, and permanent bans, often with no court involvement. Its disciplinary panels, staffed by industry insiders, act as judge and jury. Appeals go to the SEC, but even there, due process is strained. The system functions less like justice and more like an echo chamber. Critics report this is not an isolated problem. They point to a broader trend of government outsourcing enforcement to self-regulatory organizations, SROs, creating layers of unaccountable bureaucracy. Defenders argue that FINRA is necessary, a professional body designed to set and maintain standards within an industry where consumer confidence is vital. But as the Black case shows, what happens when the standards shift arbitrarily and the enforcers are immune to consequences? Legal scholars are increasingly worried. Professor Jennifer Mascott of George Mason University's Antonin Scalia Law School warns that SROs like FINRA may be structurally unconstitutional. If these regulators are exercising government power, they need to be appointed by the president or under presidential supervision. Otherwise, it's free rule by a bureaucracy detached from constitutional legitimacy. And while the courts have started to push back in other arenas, ruling, for instance, that administrative law judges at the SEC were improperly appointed, FINRA has mostly flown under the radar. Until now. Black's case is currently under review as PLF seeks to take it to the Supreme Court. If heard, the case could reshape the regulatory landscape, not just for Wall Street, but for all quasi-governmental bodies across the country. For Black, the legal fight is not just about personal vindication, it's about principle. I'm not trying to beat the system, he says. I'm trying to fix it. In a country built on dreams, rules matter. But so does the way they are enforced. When oversight becomes overreach and accountability disappears into legal fog, those dreams die, not with a bang, but with a notice from an unelected boardroom. And as long as agencies like FINRA operate unchecked, Black's story won't be the last.